All right, so our next discussion is discussing the realities of Bitcoin adoption here in El Salvador. Obviously, we're all pro-Bitcoin, we're all optimistic on Bitcoin's adoption, but like everything, there are challenges, there are setbacks, and so we're going to talk about those setbacks as well as the ways to overcome them and the optimistic view for the future. So I'm going to invite up here right now Andrew and John. They're going to help us better understand those trade-offs. So without further ado, come on up, guys.
Check 1, 2,
3, 4, check. What's up, John?
Hey, everybody.
What's up, everybody? Thank you for being here late on a day 2, day before we go to El Zonte. Is everybody excited to go to El Zonte? Me too. We're going to give you some perspectives, some tips, maybe that you don't always hear, that might help you on your travels there tomorrow. I'll give a little bit of background about this. This was a late ad panel. Friday, we were on a Twitter space about 2 years of adoption in El Salvador. And actually, John was a listener there. And I know, John, actually, let me stop. Let me let you do a quick introduction so that you get a little bit of background, and then I'll finish my kind of intro.
What? Oh, so I'm normally a Bitcoin core developer. For those of you who don't know me, I'm under the radar. I'm not trying to be like famous or anything. So I've been working on Bitcoin Core for 5 years, and I've been in El Zonte now for 1 year, which gives me zero cred, except that I've been really just in El Zonte for like a year every day, all the time, every day. And like this morning, at breakfast, a couple came up to us, sat down, and I said, hey, what are you guys up to? And they said, we just came from 2 days in El Zonte, and we're really shocked. And I said, why? Well, we only found one person who would take Bitcoin. What's going on? We thought everyone accepted Bitcoin. And I said, wait, where were you? And they said, we were on this side of the river. Oh, the east side. Yeah, did you know there's another side? And no, we didn't know. There's 2 sides to El Zonte. There's a west side and an east side. And the adoption isn't quite the same.
And yeah, so on Friday, I saw him in the audience, and I know that he's been living there. And I know that, sometimes, I follow John, and he'll tweet some, like, hey, there's a struggle. Like, adoption does not happen in a straight line. And so I said, do you want to come up on the Twitter space? He had to go. He had some.
Not in a straight line. That's life. Yeah.
Nothing happens in a straight line, the exchange rate nor the adoption. And he had to go. But he said, maybe I'll ping Kamal and see if we can get on stage. So here we are. I think that this was an interesting discussion. And from my point of view, I'll just provide that. And then I want you to provide a little bit more from yours. I've been working at Galloy for 2 years. This is my 3rd adopting Bitcoin. And I think on that Twitter space, I was like, I'm so bullish on Bitcoin in El Salvador. I'm so bullish on Bitcoin in El Zonte. Every time I go, there's more being built. There's more roads. There's people working on buildings and hotels and things like that. And to me, I view this as showing that Bitcoin is a tool that's helping a community grow, but I also realize that there's different perspectives we need to imagine, and I met John today actually in person for the first time. We talked for about 10 minutes. And we got into a really interesting back and forth, and we said, all right, now we're going to go have that on stage. So
El Zonte is changing fast.
El Zonte is
Gentrification is in full swing. The roads just came in. Now all of a sudden, everything that looked good with the roads when they were dirt roads looks a little weird with the new roads. Things are changing fast. The new constructions, people have mixed feelings, but at the same time, the kids are on the streets rolling in the fancy new streets with skateboards and bikes, and the kids are having fun. So change is in the air.
Yeah, and we got into thinking a little bit about the sort of the local community and the communities that we go to, and again, as we are traveling there tomorrow, can you give us some tips or some perspective from somebody?
I made some mistakes when I went to the first time. I showed up here at this conference and I went to El Zonte and ended up staying a year pretty much. And when I left El Zonte, which was rare because I'm a developer, so I just work at home and go to the beach and surf, I hitchhiked. This hitchhiking is so safe in this country. This country is so amazingly safe at the moment that a female young lady traveler told me, what, you're not hitchhiking to get around? I do. I hitchhike every day to go to El Zonte or to Tunco or to the city. You should try hitchhiking. And I'm like, geez, a young lady. But I'm a guy. No one will pick me up. One day waiting for the bus, this is getting a little slow in El Tunco to get back to Zante. So I finally said, okay. Car. Two young ladies, students from the city, picked me up. Took me right to Zante. Hitchhiking works great. But when you do that, you meet so many different people. All walks of life, completely different people from all different places in the country. Of course you talk about Bukele. Of course you talk about Bitcoin.
Yeah, and so, I want to dig deeper into the idea of adoption not happening in a straight line. And, I speak with different community projects around the world, and one of them, which I was here, Evo was here, I think maybe on this stage today in Bitcoin Island, Philippines, shout out. And I think those guys had a issue where we onboarded too many merchants, now they stopped. And so can you tell us about some tips for going to El Zante? What you're saying is you can't pay in every place, but
the couple this morning said, well, we couldn't believe it. We only found one person willing to accept Bitcoin, and that was Canigay Cafe on the east side. And I said, oh, Oliver's great. He not only accepts Bitcoin, he gives you 10% off if you pay in Bitcoin. And it's great food. Definitely go visit Oliver at Canigay Cafe. But on that side of the river, there is a little bit less adoption than on the west side, where the Hope House is. The Bitcoin Beach have done their amazing work, and there's just a stronger. But that said, I'm still here because I love it, and the adoption is there, and I live only on Bitcoin since 1 year. And it's totally possible, even though, yes, I am in Bitcoin Disneyland, which is El Zante, thanks to the work of Bitcoin Beach and Hope House. But some things have been changing in the last year. A lot has been changing, even within Hope House and Bitcoin Beach.
Yeah, some of the things that are changing, I think, I'd like to talk about, we were talking about, I lived in Ocean Beach, San Diego actually, which changed, and change is difficult for anybody. And can you talk a little bit about, the folks you're talking to?
So one of the first mistake I did was I went into a place on the east side and I wanted to pay in Bitcoin, and they didn't, and I was like, oh, what's going on? And they explained to me that not everybody is for. There are some people who don't like the president. There are some people who aren't keen on Bitcoin, not necessarily because they don't like Bitcoin, but because it's from the government. So it's not cool. And we have to work with this. It just is what it is. I think it's amazing that it's legal tender. I'm for this because it helps kickstart everything. But we have to overcome people's natural distrust. The colon to the dollar, there's history, there's violence. You all know. I'm not teaching you anything you don't know. But you will find, and the worst thing you can do is don't stay, oh, we'll have fun staying poor. When they don't take Bitcoin. For God's sake, don't do that. We don't have a great image universally as Bitcoiners. And the worst thing I would, please, if you go to El Salvador, El Zante the next few days, please be mindful of the noise you make after, say, 10 p.m., 9:30 p.m. The town goes quiet. It's a small town. Everyone knows everyone. And when the whole town hears a few loud, obnoxious people partying in the rented house next door because, hey, we're Bitcoiners and we're here to save the world, it kind of can grate. So just be mindful,
It was a different perspective that clicked. I mean, it was obvious in hindsight, but I think that we get really excited. We're celebrating something that's amazing that's happening globally, and there's a center point happening in El Zante, and that is an amazing thing. But when you're saying that, and this constant stream, I mean, we talk about it El Zante is a mecca, and it is. The energy there. First time I came, where's Roman? There's a hug from Roman waiting right there, and Jorge, and I was filled with that energy. Now multiply that by the tens of thousands of people coming every week, and really changing the community, and many of those changes I think are really good, and some of them I think what you're saying is some of them are hey, it's not Pacific Beach. Let's use an example.
The prices are very high and going up. Land, gentrification. It's a universal global phenomenon, gentrification. I saw it back home in southwest France, the Basque Country. They're sick of being invaded by the big city people since the pandemic. It's worldwide. But you have to understand that things are changing faster than ever, but not necessarily in a straight line. And there are stores, I've converted a few stores, not because I'm a Bitcoin adoption person, I'm a dev, but because I wanted to be able to buy surfboards with Bitcoin in El Tunco at the best surf shop in the country called Papaya Surf. they take Bitcoin again since January. The guy didn't want to hear about Bitcoin ever again. He said, I sold 8 surfboards, $8,000, and I didn't sell. I'm a fool. His price went down. I don't want to hear about Bitcoin anymore. And then he saw me come like 3 times a week for 2 months. And finally, he says, look, sit down and tell me about this again. And I said, look, I understand motion, it's great, but this is the smart time to accept Bitcoin. And since January, Papaya Surf accepts Bitcoin again. And I bought 6 surfboards because you got to help them. But I'm happy to have. I made a quiver of surfboards, and he's happy because I said, please, whatever you can leave, not financially subsidized, but do leave a little. Play with it a little, but keep what you need in cash because most of what they got to do, they got to pay in cash. Boom, they dump it for the sats for dollars. I mean, and if you guys do a one-off operation, like, hey, everybody send stats on Twitter to this waitress who was amazing to us. Here's her Lightning address. Boom. But you know what they're really going to do? They're going to dump them for dollars in most cases.
I feel personally attacked by that comment because I do that quite often. Can you tell me, so do you patronize, do you go to places that do not accept Bitcoin, or like, and what do you?
Not really, no.
Okay.
Because I don't have any dollars. I've been living on a Bitcoin standard for years, so I don't have any dollars to spend. But there's a local shop or two that I also switched over after 2 months of them getting to know me, and it's a process. Sometimes the price goes down and they come to me and say, should I sell? And sometimes the price goes up and they say, should I buy more? Obvious human nature. And sometimes they say, look, I'm really tight for cash. Business has been slow. It's the low season. I got to pay these bills and they don't want Bitcoins. I'm like, no problem. I'll pay you in cash. I only have like $100 seriously at a time, especially since the ATM in El Zonte is now gone, which I'm not blaming anybody, but it makes life a little harder. There are very good reasons why that machine was annoying as F in that building where it was. It was a pain in the patoot for the staff with all the problems and more problems, and Chivo not fixing them. And Chivo didn't pay for electricity, and Chivo didn't pay for the space. And Bitcoiners were coming in, and they were pulling cash out, and it wasn't working, and you lose your cool, and it's life. So the machine is out, and we don't have a new space for one yet.
I mean, much respect for the people in Bitcoin Beach and the people in Hope House that continue every single day to push and push and push because they know that this is the future and this is where we're going. And to, again, it's kind of like when you zoom out, right? Like it's coming up, it's coming down, and zoom out. Side note, there will be P2P exchange, in-person exchange for cash tomorrow in El Zonte. So Salim, again, Salim works on the Blink Wallet support team and is from or is living in El Zonte,
Awesome.
not from El Zonte.
Yeah,
he said we got to have a place to exchange for cash. So there will be a place.
There are up and coming solutions like Dito Banks that Jorge and other friends have. Jorge and I went to see the affected tiendas right across the street because they were like, oh, we can't accept Bitcoin anymore. We can't get the cash out to pay our people. And he talked about it with them, but it's a process. They're back to accepting Bitcoin, but they haven't done the Ditto Banks formalities. It's going to take time, and it's just like not a straight line. Yeah.
I founded the Rhode Island Bitcoin meetup like a year and a half ago, and the number of merchants I have on Bitcoin is 0. And so,
they've done a great job. The Hope House itself is so good. If you have kids here, bring them on Saturday to the Hope House. I don't care if you're an hour away. They have the El Recreo children's programs. They have the Surf para Todos, Surf for Everyone, the surf lessons. They have English classes for the youth. They have different levels. They have welding. They have basic computer literacy. There's all kinds of excellent, amazing initiatives that they're doing for the community since a long time, and this is the work that matters. They're doing, it's also, it's Christian. It's a healthy thing that they're doing. God and Bitcoin. It's just that Hope House itself has actually, as Bitcoin is not universally popular, they have not continued to do Bitcoin as education. There's been a bit of the Bitcoin Beach and Hope House teams have each evolved more in their own directions, and they're doing their things and growing each in their ways.
Yeah, and I think there's focus there where, you know, Hope House is returning to the roots
Kids.
almost pre-Bitcoin.
Yeah,
like
the kids.
Hope House was not about Bitcoin. It existed 8 years before.
But I think they're all mostly paid in Bitcoin still.
Well, because who wouldn't want to be paid in Bitcoin if once you understand it far enough? I
Right.
think, but yeah. And then I was on a panel with Roman and Mike earlier talking about the, you know, Bitcoin Beach continuing to evolve the education and not only locally but supporting communities elsewhere. We're gonna
Hey, we've got one of the best look, my dad's a dentist. My teeth are in this man's hands. Miss Dr. Enrique, come on up.
Can we get one more chair? What we
Hey,
want to
man,
do.
this is Bitcoin
so
Smiles. Enrique, he founded Bitcoin Smiles.
we wanted to actually do an in-person Twitter space. Have you ever had that where you're like raise your hand and get on stage? No, we did want to share other perspectives. We didn't want to get up here and just like, you know, chime on our own ideas. But yeah, go ahead.
Hey, hello,
maybe
everyone.
introduce yourself and maybe respond to anything that was said or share your own perspective.
Yes, welcome everyone. I'm Enrique from Bitcoin Smiles. Actually, we provide free dental care to impoverished people living in El Salvador. We are based in El Zonte, and the initiative started as a crowdfunding campaign with BTC Pay Server, Bitcoin Design. After 2 years, we got to rehabilitate more than 100 people, elderly people. We are working with 100 kids now on preventative community program with the dental school in El Zonte. Actually, we are working in a neighboring country, I mean Guatemala in this case, in the Mayan community of Lake Atitlan. So we have more kids there sparking our initiative. Actually, getting donations on Bitcoin made us adopt a Bitcoin standard.
I've always paid him in Bitcoin.
And he's a good patient.
Yeah.
You know?
He's a good dentist.
I don't know if it's for the anesthesia, but it's a wonderful patient, you know? And Bitcoin is preferred, you know? Actually, in my dental supply, or my chain supply of my small office, you know, I mean materials, expenses, bills, dental laboratory, etc., I paid in Bitcoin, right? At first, people doesn't want to accept it, but I try to tell them that accepting Bitcoin, the risk is to be free. So they understand, maybe a little, maybe a lot, and that's the way we are working, you know, under or with the Bitcoin standard. But anyone else, it's like...
But it's not
a
always
straight
easy.
line.
There are some people who don't like maybe that
Yes.
you're working with Bitcoin. You know,
They
right?
are skeptical. You mentioned that could be a political case. You know, they don't like the president. They don't, whatever. You know, maybe it's misinformation. Maybe they ignore. They don't research for themselves. You know, maybe they are lazy.
It's one-to-one. It's people that get to know you after a couple months of seeing you coming. Maybe they say, okay, please tell me, what do you think?
Correct. So in this case, I'm trying to, not to convince, but trying to share what my insight is into Bitcoin with fellow colleagues, you know, other dental professionals, physicians, anywhere in my world, even my family. And I do have to say that my mom didn't like Bitcoin because she said, oh no, you are losing your time. But actually, she's here in the audience, and she's like, really happy to be here knowing about Bitcoin, you know.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Again, I've been personally attacked. It's a half joke by like some of the things like where I like the thing that you said about don't be like have fun staying poor. Like I've heard and probably even said stories about like, well, Bitcoin's what I have, so you know.
You can't. Yeah.
And you know, like we actually
keep it light.
We in the community, we almost like. We're like, yeah, that's how you drive adoption, is you walk out of the store if they won't accept Bitcoin. And I almost, you know, in hearing some of, you know, your experience in living, like building relationships, it's like, well, like, you know, there's a fine, I don't know, there's a fine line, or if there's like...
Sometimes, you know, I might pay dollars, and then if I'm feeling a little connivance with the person, I might say, you know, though, it could be interesting to think a little bit about, and that's it, you know.
They try to get it. Some of them switch straight away to dollars, you know. But sometimes maybe they don't know that they are like losing instead of winning.
Well,
and then I don't mean about profit.
But
I
when
mean
you
about
they
the point
ask,
of
but
view of
you don't want them to get themselves in trouble either, like to speculate short term and when they need the money to pay their salaries in 2 weeks. So it's a fine line, you know.
for many people it has to be tangible, have the paper, oh, I
Yeah.
need it in my account, you know, and they feel safe with a bank.
When I hitchhike, in general, if I bring up the subject of Bitcoin with randos who take me on somewhere, and they're going halfway across the country usually, like they're not from here, they'll say, "Oh, Bitcoin, wasn't that a flop? Is that still around?" I mean, that's the truth.
I had at the Satoshi, shout out for Satoshi Nakamoto. It was so cool. Came to Adopting Bitcoin. I was over there last night, and there were 4 young kids, maybe 20 years old or something, and we actually got into talking about politics, which they had like this incredibly like complex, nuanced, and like really interesting view, which I was really. It was great to hear. It's great to just talk to your everyday person that you just run into. And so I did bring up the topic of Bitcoin, and there was kind of this notion of, well, we like missed it, or we don't have money to put into it, and they weren't thinking about Lightning, right? And so I was only talking to I was talking for like 30 or 40 minutes. So but by the end, like they downloaded Blink Wallet. I like learn about this, and they're like, they connected on WhatsApp, and now it's like, okay, here's a discussion. But it's just so much work to be done, and like, I mean, shout out to Kemal and Noor for bringing this conference to El Salvador, because the original idea behind adopting Bitcoin was like, there is a country that has set out on this difficult journey, and like there is a world full of Bitcoiners, and it is our duty kind of to like be proactive and to build better products and to come here and to spend and like have the experience of a payment not working or something,
Yeah,
or to go to a place that doesn't accept Bitcoin.
Don't be the Bitcoiner who rolls up and says, "Oh no, I don't spend my sats," either. Like if you go to the Bitcoin farmers market where they accept Bitcoin for sure, don't be the guy like, "Oh no, I only spend my dollars. I'm a hodler. I'll never let one sat go." I mean,
It's like they're never going to sell their sats.
Yeah, because some of the people working there aren't Bitcoiners, and they laugh behind the backs of Bitcoiners saying, because I'm a surfer, so a lot of people come to me and talk to me thinking I'm a surfer, not a Bitcoiner, because most surfers who come to El Zante are not Bitcoiners and don't like Bitcoin, and are very happy to talk bad about Bitcoin with the locals who also don't like Bitcoin, and they kind of supply each other with bad comments about Bitcoin being sketchy and this and that.
Go on.
And as a surfer, I hear all that because they see me and think, "Oh, he's a surfer like us. He's fiat." Well, he's not Bitcoin. He's
Good OPSEC, being a surfer.
So I
I
forgot what I was
think
going to
it's
say.
the anesthesia.
Yeah. I forgot what I was going to say.
Well, I mean, they don't think you're a Bitcoiner, so you might hear
So
comments.
you hear the straight skimmy from people who don't like it. But yeah, look, I have something else I want to say. It's not popular, but I think it's good to be aware of it. There's social change happening at this moment. It's exciting, but there's big differences between people who are living on $300 a month in a sort of a shanty, in our eyes, maybe, and these new property projects that are coming on where the top floor went for $3 million and everybody's buzzing about it in El Zante, and there's obviously for and against. But this is a time of rapid social change and gentrification, and as everywhere when that happens, there's some social strife perhaps, and some resentment, a backlash, and I do hear people saying, "Oh, it's those Bitcoiners. They're making the prices," because El Zante has the highest prices in the country, I think. And how are the parents' kids going to buy land? And be aware of your privacy on a personal level, because we don't know what the future holds. And if you're just coming through and leaving in a week, that's one thing. But if you settle down here, you might want to consider being a little under the radar, or not necessarily a big flamboyant Bitcoiner in case the tide turns. So like when I go to Bitcoin meetups, I'm a little bit shocked that everybody's like doxing the whole room, they 360 film of the whole room, and they're putting it up on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, and I don't have to go to see if my friends went. But that supplies to facial recognition algorithms, Anyone who needs to pay, or a government, or the NSA, or the CIA, or anyone who needs to know who's a Bitcoiner in El Salvador just has to talk to the social media. So I don't know, maybe I'm being paranoid, I'm a dev, maybe I'm more of a target. But consider, we don't know what the future in this country is. I'm betting a lot of my personal time and resources in that this country will continue on the right path. But you never know, and it's good to maybe not necessarily, unless your job is to be a YouTuber or whatever, something very visible, or a business. But if you're just a person, maybe you don't have to be visible.
Yeah, I mean, you made me again think twice with the comment about the buildings. Again, like it is something to celebrate, like roads, buildings, improvements. You know, I lived in Ocean Beach and San Diego, which was a weird place, right? You go to Hillcrest or downtown or another place if you want something that's like fancy and upscale started coming in, and I was on the other side of this equation, but it was like a 100th, like magnitudes less of that, and so like that it's something to be aware of. Yeah. And so like again, I think that like what this conversation is about is just like identifying some
mindful.
Things, being mindful.
Which
I think
I say that because I not always was, and I realized that.
Actually, just like a comment about one person that didn't accept my payments in Bitcoin. Several months later, he said, "Hey, why don't we talk about having or accepting payments in Bitcoin?" He said, and I'm like, why? Why this time? And he said, because I see that it's pumping, you know?
Well, that's normal. People start with price.
So when it's
they
pumping,
start with greed. It's
give
normal.
me that one that it's pumping, he said.
The nobler aspects come after, but people have to start with what's my interest. Yeah, for sure. People ask me, is it time to sell, time to buy? You have to deal with it.
At a slow rate, we are taking a lot of adoption, you know, in different merchants, in the day-by-day life here in El Salvador.
The Canasta is back since a few months. The Claro store on the east side, is back.
Many others, you know, and there will be more.
Yeah.
Obviously, in a Bitcoin standard, so it's about education, it's about information, it's about having good insights, and obviously trust, you know, in a different way of life, you know, that it's going to take us to freedom and change our humanity.
If you want to pay in Bitcoin, don't use Uber. Just go to the store and say, hey, I need a ride, you know, and do you accept Bitcoin? That way you can get a ride with locals that get all the money in their pocket, and it's in Bitcoin, if they accept it. If you want to pay in Bitcoin, don't do Airbnb, just use a hotel. Almost all the hotels in El Zonte, thanks to the work of Bitcoin Beach and Hope House, almost every hotel accepts Bitcoin for a room and maybe the restaurant. Maybe not necessarily the shop, because they have inventory from local people they need to give cash to, but usually hotels you can do pretty well throughout El Zonte.
You got me again. I booked Airbnb. Sorry, go ahead.
Yes, everything, you know.
Yeah, if you want to, the hotels take Bitcoin, Airbnb doesn't yet. So
food, transportation, healthcare in this case, small things from tienda, surfboard rentals, everything. You could like pay it in Bitcoin.
You want to buy a surfboard, go to El Tunco. Papaya Surfboard takes Bitcoin since January, and they have great boards, like pro boards. Yeah.
We have just a couple minutes left. I actually want to save like a couple minutes for Q&A. So maybe John, if you wanted to do like maybe the last quick question for you, if you can answer quickly, is like, do you have any solutions, suggestions, or anything that people should know as like a takeaway from these ideas that we've discussed today?
I'm drawing a blank. How about you? Any suggestions, last ideas?
I don't know. I suggest you to enjoy El Salvador. The time is now. Jump off the cliff. We have to be risky in our lives, you know, so it's the time
it's safe.
To do it safe as well.
Seriously, hitchhiking works great.
Yes, and it's like the country of the smile, and we are smiling double because we have wonderful people like you, and you are welcome with open arms, you know, in a Bitcoin country, in a place that it smells like freedom, you know. So we got to take care of each other and hopefully develop locally and globally what we are looking for, that it's like a wonderful world, you know, happiness, the willingness to create a great world, and obviously be free in this world that is so collapsed and convulsive.
Thank you, guys. I think we'll take like one comment or question real quick, if we can. Anybody?
Hey everybody, hi John. My question is actually for you.
Hey, Kiki.
I have noticed a lot of people both online and in real life who are Bitcoin maxis who are coming into El Zonte either for a short term, medium term, or long term, and some of the feedback that they have to give is basically the issue of custodian wallets versus non-custodian wallets and how that impacts adoption. I'm curious for you, John, how, like, what your thoughts are on that, or what you would have to say to people who are coming into El Zonte for the first time and might, you know, be on one side or another, because I know that you've seen businesses do both, and I know that you have perhaps used both. So I'm curious on your perspective.
I met a new friend who in the water as a surfer a month ago, a really nice guy, and he just lost $60,000 because he left it on Coinbase and his phone got SIM swapped. So these things are tragedy, you know, and like I don't trust any third party, period. But you know, I'm a developer. It's natural for me to be a little bit paranoid. My phone is, I have an iPhone here, which I don't like Apple products, but I have it on lockdown mode. You can secure your devices. If you have money on an exchange, thank you for bringing this up. If you have money on an exchange, lock that down. Please don't let it be accessible by your phone that can be SIM swapped. Please, if you have the ability, self-custody. When I'm asked by people, I don't orange pill people, but when people come to me and ask, can you help me get set up? I will, and I set them up self-custody. Now, there are some great wallets that are non-custodial. For example, not Chivo, Blink is a great wallet. It's very friendly, very easy to use, and I'm sort of on their case to make it self-custody.
Yeah.
But
I'm sorry. I think you said.
Sorry, I forgot. It was right next to me.
Well, yeah. Two quick things. I think money on an exchange and money in a custodial wallet for payments are probably two different things.
Fair.
But thank you. Yeah.
Much more trust to Blink than to Coinbase for damn sure. But you know, I think, and Nora will say, no, it's for the Papusa lady, but I think it could be for me too, and I wish they could just remove the need for KYC. But for me right now, it's like Zeus with maybe the Lightning Service Provider option for people who don't run their own node, or maybe something like Phoenix. But for other people, it could be, that's a personal opinion. Someone had a question over here.
I don't know, do we have time for one more question, or? Okay. Guys, thank you very much for kind of sitting with us and talking through some of the ups, downs, forwards, backs of adoption. You know, I think it's really important to do this. So John, Enrique, thank you.
And Andrew, thanks so much.